So I thought I'd better start off this video by wishing everybody a Merry Christmas because it is Christmas Day as I record this video. So Merry Christmas to everybody watching, and also thank you to everybody who supported my channel over the year of 2023. As you can see, I am still kind of going with a pretty temporary setup here. I'm holding the microphone, so I do apologize for audio issues because I know that there are some, but I thought I'd better talk about this article, this brilliant article that Shawn Bitter has written called A Prospect from Every Country that the promotion should sign, and he's talking about the UFC. Now this isn't a promotion for Shawn Bitter at all. In fact, I'm actually going to be using his content in this video here. I'm going to be using his article, reading through his article very quickly, and just giving my thoughts and opinions on it. So all credit for this article, for this list, is to Shawn Bitter. He has a Twitter, he has an Instagram, he has a Patreon, and he regularly does do articles on the website called cagesidepress.com. This isn't an advertisement, but I've got to give the credit where the credit is due. And in this one here, let's just react to the article. I watch a lot of NBA content, and I notice a lot of NBA content is based on reacting to articles. So I thought I could probably do that too. I do need a little bit of easy content to make, as I am in a very temporary setup on my laptop here. But I will link all of the socials to Shawn Bitter in the description and the pinned comment below. And now let's start. Let's just start off. I believe he's put these in alphabetical order. I do want to say that I actually haven't watched read the article yet, so I'm prepared to give my thoughts just off the top of my head on Christmas Day, and also get educated as well, because there will be some fighters on here that I'm not too familiar with. And we're starting off with Afghanistan with Milad Ahadi, who is 6-1, who Shawn Bitter just mentioned here. He's a pretty good fighter. As you can see, I actually haven't heard of him, so very interesting to see. I know that there are some fighters from Afghanistan fighting for Matrix Fight Night over in India, so you could talk about him as well. But now he's gone on to Albania, called Vilsan Indragoni. I think Vilsan Indragoni is a great fighter, and I actually am very familiar with him. He recently got a massive knockout win over a former Dana White's Contender Series fighter, whose name did just slip my mind. And I did hear a rumour that he got signed to the UFC. But that rumour must have been incredibly incorrect, because he hasn't signed to the UFC. But he would be a good representative from Albania, because I don't believe that there is anyone else from Albania in the UFC. So Vilsan Indragoni, a guy to keep an eye out for. He does have KO power. He did get a massive KO over Ashik Azim. His name did just come to me. Angola, we've got a fighter from Angola who I've never heard of, but this would be interesting because the UFC is planning on going to Africa in the year of 2024. So having a fighter from Angola could be very interesting and exciting. His fighter's name is Shido Boris Soto Esperanca, who is 8-1. Definitely someone I've got to look into. Someone I'm not familiar with. Very good. Very good from Shawn Bitter finding him. Argentina. There are many fighters from Argentina. Maybe I have or haven't done a video on Argentina yet, but there are a lot of fighters. I believe they all fight for a promotion called FFN or something like that. And there's a lot of them, man. There's a lot of Argentina guys, though, with very padded records, I will be honest. But we've got this fighter here, Mauro Mastroeni, 16-2. Very good record. As I said, there's a lot of guys in Argentina with really good records. And Shawn Bitter's picked out Mastroeni, who I just said his name so wrong. 16-2, very good record. Armenia, he's got Martin Meslerman, 14-3. Being honest, I actually haven't heard of him before. Very interested to hear and have a look into him. I think that's a good pick, to be honest. And for Australia, you guys will know, I'm from New Zealand, so I do know about a few fighters from Australia. He's gone with Cody Haddon, a very good secret fighter, if that makes sense. He had a war with Stephen Erceg, and Stephen Erceg is now in the rankings in the UFC. He's a young, up-and-coming guy. I think if you do see Cody Haddon maybe win one, maybe two more fights soon, you will see him on Dana White's Contender Series at the end of the year for sure. But I also do believe that the UFC is going to be coming back to Australia again in 2024, and probably twice. I know that they signed that deal with Sydney, so they're definitely coming back to Sydney in 2024. So let's see. Cody Haddon, good fighter. A good pick from Shawn Bitter here in this article. Muhammad Makayev from Austria has picked here. I believe Muhammad Makayev had a massive fight booked in Matrix Fight Night that got cancelled against another undefeated fighter, or should I say, I think he actually did that fight and it ended in the 1-0 contest. But yes, A pretty obvious pick, but a good pick from Austria is Makayev. Good one there. Azerbaijan, he's gone with Iska Ismailov. An interesting pick here, he's 5-1. Now, I would personally go with someone who has lost quite a bit recently. I'm kind of thinking along the lines of Nariman Abasov, because I believe his record is 29-5, but he did lose his last fight, so if the UFC were to sign him again, he's going to have to win at least 2 fights in a row. But as one of his most recent losses did come to Ismail Bonfim, who we know is a good fighter. Bahrain, I actually made a video on fighters from Bahrain called KHK MMA is Taking Over, because they are. And in that video, I go over a lot of really good fighters from Bahrain, including Magomed Gadzhiusulov and also Shamil Gaziev, who had a very successful UFC debut recently. But Ramazan Gitanov had a massive amateur career. I believe he had 33 amateur fights, and I think he lost 2 of them. But there are a lot of fighters from Bahrain with incredible amateur records, undefeated, 20 plus fights. It's crazy how many good fighters are out of Bahrain. He's gone with Gitanov, very good up and coming prospect to keep your eye on. Belarus, a country I haven't looked into personally. We've got Antonina Kulishova, 3-0. Good pickup. I mean, I've genuinely never heard of her. I've genuinely never really looked into Belarus. But we do have Andrei Arlovsky from Belarus, so maybe there's something there. Belgium, he's gone with Alain van der Merkt. Well, he did mention Balajioki, who did just get signed, and he is the man from Belgium for sure. Personally, not too familiar with van der Merkt. Very good pick. And he said that he's a middleweight as well, and the UFC needs middleweights. So this is a guy I need to keep my eye out for. I believe there are a couple more guys from Belgium. I believe there's a Belgium-based fighter with a kickboxing background that's recently made a transition over to MMA. Might have to look into that a little bit more. And then he's gone for Bolivia, Robert Battle, who was 3-0. And he did mention the Seiler brothers. There were 2 Seiler brothers. And yeah, recently the UFC did sign that fighter from Bolivia who fought Gadzhiusulov. And to be honest, didn't really look that great, but Dana White seemed to like him. Kevin Seiler, and I believe it was Steven Seiler as well, was in the UFC at some point, but I believe Kevin Seiler was undefeated and lost in 2020, as Shawn Bitter has literally said in this article, and hasn't fought since. So let's have a look. I know that there is a couple fighters from Bolivia. I don't think I've made a video on this country, but I did research it, and I just decided that there wasn't enough. But I'll keep an eye out for Robert Battle for sure. Now we've got Bosnia and Herzegovina, Haris Talunzik, good fighter. I believe he was robbed against that Chinese fighter that come over and then was in Bahati Boli Batibalati, fought Haris Talunzik and robbed him, in my opinion. I thought he should have won that fight. He's a good welterweight. He is fighting in LFA. I believe he's still fighting in LFA at the moment, but he is a decent fighter. For Brazil, I mean, there's so many fighters from Brazil that the UFC could sign. So many, in fact. There's probably, if you gave me a bit of time, I could probably come up with a list of at least 10. And I think that was shown in Dana White's Contender Series 2023. I believe Brazil was the country which the UFC signed the most fighters from on Dana White's Contender Series 2023, which is crazy. But he's gone with Felipe Lima, a good pick. He knows that I know that Shawn Bitter does rate Felipe Lima very highly. He was meant to be on a road to UFC bonus fight against Long Zhao. He probably would have beaten Long Zhao. But let's move on. Bulgaria, Valentin Benashev, the legend that is Benashev. My goodness, man. I mean, I keep waiting for Benashev to just do something, because he's been inactive recently, but he's got a crazy padded record. I'm just waiting for him to go on Dana White's Contender Series. I mean, what's going on? Let's just get Benashev in the UFC. He's 19-0. You could probably use him just to kind of pad someone else's record, even if you wanted to. But Benashev is a guy for sure. Tony Laramie is his pick from Canada. He is the brother of TJ Laramie. Canada does have quite a few fighters. In fact, I might have to make a video based on that country. But yeah, Tony Laramie, he is the brother of TJ Laramie, but he has had a couple good wins. He must have fought recently as well, because I didn't realize he had 10 fights. I thought he was 6-2 the last time I really had a quick look at Tony Laramie, so I like that pick from him. Chile, he's gone with Diego Gomez Manjur. A good pick. I am familiar with him. There was another fighter from Chile on Dana White's Contender Series this year, if I do recall correctly, but he lost to Victor Hugo, and he had a really good record. So maybe you see him make a return. But Diego Gomez-Manzora actually just fought very, very soon, recently I believe, for Samurai Fight House. That's correct. He fought against a guy that didn't have the best record, but this guy's got a lot of KOs. Does Gomez-Manzora. I like him. And for China, he's gone with Kong Wang, which I find interesting. For me, I would go with Tian Haofeng. Tian Haofeng, I believe, is 15-2 as a pro fighter. He's very good. There's actually quite a few fighters from China, and I believe I've made more than one video on Chinese fighters. But yeah, Tian Haofeng would be my personal pick. He's 15-2, as I said. Or even Jifa Shang. I know Jifa Shang is ancient. He's like 37 or 38 years old. But he's like 27-1 in his last 28 fights. I'll probably go with him as well. But yeah, I don't know what it is about it, man. But for some weird reason, I'm really onto it with the Chinese regional scene. I just like how they fight so often. I think it's awesome. There's a lot of really good fighters there. But yeah, unfortunately for the Chinese flyweights, the truth is Jifa Shang just beats them all. So the UFC should sign Jifa Shang. I know he's old, but it'll be worth it, to be honest. Now we've got Congo. He's gone with Lisa Kubanza. I believe the UFC just signed someone from Congo as well. Am I correct in saying that? I think I might be wrong, actually. But yes, 4-0 fighter. Personally, not too familiar with him. I mean, I can't be familiar with everybody. Croatia, he's gone with Danny Barbia. 6-0 fighter. Good. Personally, not too familiar. And he's got Ernesto Rodriguez from Cuba as well. And yes, another good fighter that I'm genuinely not too familiar with. So 3 countries in a row that I didn't know who they were. A little bit embarrassing, I will admit, but let's go on. The Czech Republic, a lot of fighters, yeah, so you got Leo Brichema from the KSW, but you've also got a lot of fighters from the Czech Republic fighting Octagon MMA, which is one of the better promotions in the world, in my opinion. And then also you do have KSW, as you mentioned, quite a few. A lot of fighters from Czech Republic are strikers with striking backgrounds, so maybe that's something to mention. He's got Macias Arena from the Dominican Republic, and yeah, Waldo Cortez Acosta represents that country. Now we've got Arena here, pretty decent. And then for Ecuador, he's gone with Adrian Luna Martinetti, who did just, his brother, I believe, fought on Dana White's Contender Series in 2023, but he did end up losing to a split decision, I believe, to a fighter that's now in the UFC, Alessandro Costa. So yes, there's 2 fighters from Ecuador, both brothers, both very good fighters. Both Martinetti brothers are good. I think they're both going to end up in the UFC eventually. I mean, their records are pretty padded, but you can see that the talent is there. And Alessandro Costa just had a decent fight with Steve Erceg himself, and also did give Amir Albazi some trouble when he made his debut on short notice. So losing to Alessandro Costa on short notice, honestly, I don't think is a big deal, to be honest. So yeah, I think that both of these guys are both brothers. Martinetti brothers could end up in the UFC for sure. For Egypt, I think I agree with Shawn Bitter here. He says that they would love to dip into the Egyptian market, and Maysara Muhammad is their option for that. He's 7-0. There is quite a few Egyptian fighters, Egypt-based fighters, but I believe 1 or 2 of them have signed to the PFL, because I believe that the PFL is signing a lot of fighters from that kind of area of the world, as they have secured a lot of funding from that area of the world, like Saudi Arabia, for example. We've got Finland, Abdul Hussein, 9-2 from Finland. I mean, there's a lot of fighters from Finland as well that are in Cage Warriors too. France, he's gone with Baki Chapsudinov. Absolutely, I completely agree. Now, Boisengua Chamsadinov is 10 out of 10, the fighter to pick. He's only 22 years old, as he mentions. He's beaten a couple of UFC, former UFC fighters. I believe he just dominated his last opponent as well. Now, the problem with Chamsadinov is I believe he fights and trains at MMA Factory. So, I guess with that, he's kind of with Fernand Lopez, and the UFC doesn't like to deal with Fernand Lopez whatsoever. So, yeah, I think Boisengua Chamsadinov would probably have to find a different management, potentially. But yeah, this is a good pickup from the UFC. I mean, we're just waiting for them to sign him, to be honest. If the UFC doesn't know who Baki Chamsadinov is, they need better talent scouts. And yeah, I mean, come on, this is a gimme. I don't know why they haven't signed him yet. They need to sign him right now. Georgia, he's got Mate Sanakadze from here. There is a couple. I would say Amiran Gogoladze would probably be my pick from Georgia, personally. just because I think he's fun. He's a very good striker. And now we've got Germany. He's gone with Islam Dulatov. Good pickup. There is a fighter in PFL Europe that's really good as well, but I guess he's signed to the PFL. But they've also got Felix Klinthammer, unless Felix Klinthammer did lose to Baki Chumsadinov. I thought that fight was cancelled, but that's once again a good pick from Shawn Bitter here. And then for Greece, he's gone with Alexandros Montinis, who is 7-0. I'm going to be honest, I'm not too familiar with the Greece regional scene, but they did have Andreas Michailidis, so maybe there is something going on there. He's gone with Alexandros Montinis, a fighter I'm genuinely not too familiar with, but if he was fighting at the age of 15, he's probably pretty young, and definitely a guy I need to have on my radar right now. And now we move on to Hungary. He's got Akos Deniz. I'm genuinely not too familiar with the Hungary local sort of area. For India, he's got Clinton Kenan de Cruz. That's an interesting one. I would go with Angad Bisht, personally. I think Angad Bisht is a fighter that the UFC should sign. There is rumours that he's going to be fighting at one championship, but these are just speculation. He's just kind of posting a bunch of stuff right now. Hopefully we can see him get signed to the UFC. Angad Bisht I'm talking about. Maybe Clinton Kenan de Cruz could be a big one for India as well. The UFC wants to sign fighters from India. They just signed Pooja Tomar. They signed Anshul Jabli off the road to UFC tournament. Anshul Jabli just got a pretty bad loss, which kind of sucks because he really was the future superstar from India the UFC was looking for. Maybe this guy could be. Maybe Angad Bisht could be, as I mentioned as well. Maybe Pooja Tomar could be. For Ireland, he's gone with Paul Hughes. 10 out of 10, agree. Paul Hughes just dominated Jordan Vasenik in the rematch. There's no question about it. I'm going to be honest, I think this is the fight to make. So yeah, there's no question about it. Paul Hughes, why is he not in the UFC? This is crazy. I agree completely with Shawn Bitter in this one here. For Israel, he's gone with Tariel Abasov. Personally, not familiar with him at all, but he's 8-0, and this is embarrassing that I don't know who he is. Italy, he's gone with Michael Pagani. A good pick. I believe there is a couple really good Italian fighters on Cage Warriors. They had that champion called Michele Martinoni, but I believe he dropped weight to 125 and then lost. So yeah, I guess Michele Martinoni will have to wait for the UFC, but that would be my pick personally. He's gone Michael Pagani. Yes, he did just got a big KO win. I believe it was a KO over James Power, who was a undefeated up and coming fighter. But yeah, Michael Pagani, a fighter. I believe he fights for Cage Warriors as well. Japan, I mean, there's a lot of good fighters out of Japan. He's gone with Yuji Ifogiva, who is 6-0. I would probably go with a fighter whose name has just skipped my mind, but he's 13-3. Tatsuya Ando, I believe is his name. Tatsuya Ando is who I think I'd go with, because he has some really high-level experience. But yeah, there's some good fighters out of Japan, man. Like, I know that the UFC has been signing guys from Japan recently, like Rinya Nakamura. And also they signed that guy of Dana White's Contender Series in 2022, but he's not having a lot of success. He's fighting Danny Barlow. His name is Yusaku Kinoshita. They signed him. Yeah, the UFC is keen on guys from Japan. He's gone with a 6-0 fighter. I think there is a lot of other good fighters from Japan as well. There's a lot of fighters from Japan. There's even fighters from Japan fighting in UAE Warriors. There's a Ryzen advertisement here, the New Year's Eve event. I'm going to try and watch it, but I think I'm going to be busy New Year's Eve. But let's see. Let's move on. Jordan. I'm not familiar with Jordan, I'll be honest. I'm going to try and skip through a little bit. I think I've probably been recording for a while. 18 minutes. Let's get speeding. Kazakhstan. He's gone with Damir Tulinov. I believe I might have made a video on Kazakhstan fighters. There's a lot of really good ones, man. There's a lot of just really, really good ones. He rates him as a top 15 level flyweight in the future. Damir Tulinov's a good fighter. I think I've made a couple videos on Kazakhstan. Their names are slipping me at the moment, which is embarrassing. Kyrgyzstan, he's gone with Razabali Shaduliev, who is 9-0. I would go with the fighter that is 20-3. I believe his name is Kurdishbek. No, I think I've got his name wrong. There is a fighter that's 20-3, a lightweight, that I think the UFC should sign from Kyrgyzstan. Sorry, there's a lot of good fighters from Kyrgyzstan, though. I will be honest. Now we can move on to Mexico. I literally just made a video on Mexico. That's actually crazy. He's got David Martinez here, and he's also used his nickname, which is kind of awesome. But yeah, I just made a video on Mexico fighters, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, literally just a few days ago, and I believe I had a guy called Sanchez. Was it Daniel Sanchez or something like that? As one of my top guys, I'd say maybe him, because he just fought on Uriah Faber's A1 Combat. I need to actually see if he won, because I did miss it because that fight was on New Year's Eve, and I was busy with family. I don't know, as you can. Mongolia, I would say Mongolia. He's gone with Badmut Sanduziev. Yeah, probably. But I was going to say the guy that fought on Road to UFC and beat Top Noi Karam, Peter Daniso. The guy that beat Top Noi... I forgot his name, man. His nickname is Art of Knockout. Nyamjagal Timimindimburel is who I was thinking. But yeah, Dorziev is a guy the UFC needs to sign right now. But I would say that, yeah, there is also Nyamjagal Timimindimburel who the UFC needs to sign as well. Morocco, genuinely not too familiar with Morocco, I'll be honest. But he's gone with a fighter with a kickboxing background that's 4-0. I like that. Namibia, Hafini Nafika, who is 5-0. Once again, not too familiar with Namibia, but I need to start educating myself on the African regional scene. For the Netherlands, he's got Elias Boulade. There is quite a few really good kickboxing background guys from the Netherlands. I believe they just had that guy that was on Dana White's Contender Series in 2023, but he lost, which was quite bad. It was a former opponent of Alex Bahia. For New Zealand, he's gone with Aaron Toe. I completely agree. I believe he's actually might be 8-0. There was word on the street that he had a fight recently, but his Tapology hasn't been uploaded. So yeah, Aaron Toe is 100%. 100% the guy that I'd pick. Other than that, you've got Matt Viley as well, who's pretty good. You've also got that heavyweight from Niall Sterling, I believe his name is. Niall Sterling from the City Kickboxing too. Yeah, Aaron Toe, absolutely, from New Zealand. Nigeria, he's gone with Adamu Isa. I believe Adamu Isa is a little bit older. I think he's maybe 34 years old. Am I correct in saying that? But I believe he fights in the LFA. For Norway, Cecilie Belander, a female fighter with a good IMMAF background and amateur. Good. For Guinea, he's gone with Lucien Kaiser. This is just without a question. Absolutely without a question. He should be signed to the UFC today. I agree. Completely. 10 out of 10. For Peru, there's quite a few fighters from Peru, man. I actually made a video on Peru, but he's gone with Jose Ochoa, who was 7-0. But I would almost put... Oh, man, his name has slipped my mind again, man. This is so bad. As I said, I'm reading this article for the very first time, so these are all kind of a surprise to me. But I feel like there is a kind of few good fighters from Peru that I'm missing. But there is a fighter from Peru that's 18-1 or something like that, but his name has slipped me. Poland, Cezary Oluszczyk. There's a lot of fighters from Poland, man. I mean, there's a lot of fighters from the UFC, sorry, not from the UFC, but KSW, fighting from Poland. Poland's got a really good heavyweight as well that has an ugly record of 25-10, but I think the UFC would be smart to sign him. But once again, Mikhail Brcic or something like that, Portugal. He's gone with Mario Pinto. Yeah, this is the pick for sure. He did win that heavyweight Grand Prix recently, so he fought 3 times in one night, as he did say. Yeah, Pinto for sure. I mean, we need more heavyweights. The UFC needs more heavyweights. I think it's smart. I like that pick as well for Pinto. For Russia, I mean, you guys know. There are so many good prospects from Russia right now. I mean, it would take a long time to make a complete list of Russian fighters that are good. He's gone with Islam Omarov. There's quite a few really good guys with just crazy records, to be honest. But my mind is really slipping me. But yeah, Islam Omarov, 14-0, really good fighter. But you guys can imagine, if you go to ACA Tapology, there are so many guys that are 14-0. I would even say Kirill Kornilov from the heavyweight division would be a good one, because I know that they need more heavyweights. Serbia, he's gone with Marko Bukovic, 5-0. KSW has quite a good heavyweights from Serbia, which is surprising. Slovakia, Lucia Savova. Personally, not too familiar, but probably I should be, because she's a national champion in Muay Thai with a good background. South Africa, Igu Kabesa. Yeah, absolutely. I believe Igu Kabesa was meant to fight on a PFL card. Not a PFL card, but one of the Contender Series for the PFL cards against the fighter from India. He probably would have won that fight. Kabesa must sign. But they're messing around by not signing Igu Kabesa. There's also quite a few fighters from South Africa. South Korea's gone with C1 Park. Yeah. Yes, C1 Park's a good one, but there's also, I believe his name is Hyun-Sung Park as well, Park Hyun-Sung. No, he's in the UFC. Oh no. What am I thinking of? There is also another really good fighter. He lost to Mark Clamarco recently, but he's only like 21 years old and he's a flyweight. I believe his name is Hyun-Sung Park, but I could be wrong. The guy that lost to Mark Clamarco recently. Ignacio Cabello from Spain. Yeah, probably, but in Spain, I actually looked into Spain because I wanted to make a video on it. There's not that many fighters in the MMA from Spain. I'll be honest, you know, like the best representative really is Ilia Topuria. There is quite a few veterans, quite a few older fighters from Spain, but there's not like a lot of really young up-and-coming guys from that country. For Sweden, he's gone with Bernardo Sapage. I mean, there is quite a few fighters from Sweden that you could mention here, but I guess they've actually all been signed to the UFC recently, now that I think about it. So maybe Sweden's another country I'm going to have to go over. He's gone with Sapage, who's 10-2, sorry. Genuinely, I'm going to be honest, not a fighter I'm actually that familiar with. But yeah, very interesting. Switzerland, he's gone with Hussein Karimagomedov, 10-1 fighter. You could say him. I mean, the fighter that just come to my mind immediately was the fighter that fought on Road to UFC on the bonus fight as a welterweight. His name has slipped my mind again, which is just horribly embarrassing. Tajikistan, he's gone with Samanda Muradov. Yes, we're literally just waiting for Samanda Muradov to get signed to the UFC because we're waiting on him to get a visa and then they're going to sign him. Absolutely. Samanda Muradov is a guy that I've been shouting from the rooftops for the UFC to sign. For Ukraine, he's gone with Alexei Kravets, who was 6-0. A good fighter. I mean, Bellator recently signed a lot of fighters from Ukraine, so they've probably kind of taken quite a bit of the talent pool that is out there. But yeah, 6-0, Alexei Kravets. I mean, there is actually quite a surprising amount of fighters from Ukraine, but a lot of them are also signed to KSW as well, so I guess it does make things a little bit more awkward. UAE, I mean, the UFC needs to sign more fighters from UAE, except there's just not many of them. They signed the only fighter from UAE that really had done anything, who was Muhammad Yahya, but yeah, he's not really fantastic, I'll be honest. He lost that decision to Trevor Peak. Hadi Amar Al-Hassani is 4-0. Yeah, probably just a guy you're going to have to give time, though. But the problem with these guys from the UAE, the UFC, so these other promotions, are going to want them to get the eyes on them, to maybe get some funding, maybe to get some events going in Abu Dhabi. So yeah, maybe PFL, KSW, Octagon might pick up these guys. But yeah, definitely George Hardwick. Yeah, I agree. In fact, he shouldn't have even been on the Contender Series. The brutal reality is, though, is maybe George Hardwick wasn't as good as we thought he was, but that's not a reality I want to come to terms with. I guess you could go with Jordan Vasenik as well if you really wanted to. I like the idea of Vasenik in the UFC. Austin Bashi, 11-1. I'm going to have to Google something really quick. I did not realize he lost. Oh, no, I thought he was undefeated. Hold on. He must have lost recently. No, he's 11-0. Okay. I almost panicked a little bit, unless he lost to Askar. No, he's 11-0. Okay, Shawn Bitter, you scared me. Because, yeah, I agree with Austin Bashi. He actually has been turning down UFC offers, is what I'm hearing, because he wants to give himself more time to develop. I agree. I mean, this is the USA. As you guys can imagine, there's so many prospects from the USA. John Sweeney comes to mind. There's actually just kind of a lot. I guess, like, if you wanted to go with the heavyweights, Greg Velasco, but, let's just move on. Luciano Pereira from Uruguay. Yeah, he was meant to be on Dana White's Contender Series, but I believe he missed weight by like 10 pounds or something. So, yeah, I reckon Luciano Pereira, I mean, he's fun, man. This guy's an absolute, like, powerhouse at this weight class. And he's gone with Uzbekistan. Kotam Boynarov. Once again, I've made videos on Uzbekistan. There's definitely fighters from that country that the UFC could sign. Venezuela, Marcio Alfonso, who was 7-0. Vietnam, An Ho, absolutely. I mean, An Ho could get signed to the UFC very, very soon. I mean, I believe he's fighting for the LFA right now. Give him some time, An Ho, and he'll be in the UFC for sure. And then for Zimbabwe, he's gone with Nicholas Huwende. Yeah, I agree as well. I think that he probably is the number one kind of pick. But to be honest with you, Huwende is actually the only fighter that I'm really too familiar with from Zimbabwe. But I like that idea as well. This is a 30-minute video. If you guys made it this far, that's amazing. But yeah, with all that being said, I'll leave you guys in the next one. Thank you guys so much.